Hello everyone, my name is Rahul and welcome back to my channel DevOps Forge. In the last video we covered what DevOps actually is, and today we will go one level deeper and understand the core DevOps philosophy behind it. And I know some of you are thinking, bro, just show me Jenkins, Docker and how to use Kubernetes. But skip this part and you will always use the tools in a wrong way. You will automate the wrong things, you will still have broken pipelines, and tools without the right knowledge or thinking will not save you, they will just make your mess faster. So, the first topic inside core DevOps philosophy is shift left approach. Now, picture this, the dev team codes for 3 weeks, okay, and they send it to the testing team. Testing team found that there were 40 bugs inside that code. So testing team sent the code back to dev and said that fix it. Now the dev team fixed the code and they sent back to the testing. Now comes the security team next, and they flagged 5 critical vulnerabilities in the code. So what happened? Due to which the release delayed. And the problem here is the testing and security, they both sat at the very end and it was way too late. So shift left just means that move these things, the security and testing, to the beginning. Run tests while you write code. Okay, check for security issues at the code level, not at the end. Okay, not after the deployment. Why? Because the cost of fixing a bug grows the longer you wait. A bug caught in production may cause potential outage, rollbacks, angry users, and a very uncomfortable conversation with your manager. So, what should you do then? You should write unit tests or other tests at the code level. Also, you should integrate security at the very beginning, not at the end. You should use static analysis tools for security and run automated security scans in your CI pipeline. Right? With this, we'll move ahead with the next topic, which is shift right approach. Okay. Now, shift right is the opposite direction, and shift right and shift left, they both work together, not against each other. Right? So, shift left catches the problem before production. Okay. Before production, the shift left catches the bug or the issues, or and the shift right is about learning from what happened in the production. So no matter how good your tests are, production is very unpredictable, and real users do things you never expected. The traffic spikes could be there at weird hours, and third party services may fail. The only way to truly understand your system is to observe when it's live, right? When your application is live, then only you can observe it. And shift right means you should include monitoring in your system and observability as well. You should add feature flags, and also a very famous term called chaos engineering. Include all of these in your system and you will be able to build a reliable system. So the basic understanding for monitoring is the system up or is it slow? So this is what monitoring provides. And observability will go a bit deeper and it will say that why is it slow, right? The feature flag is basically an approach where it lets you release the 5% of your application. Sorry, it lets you release the application to 5% of user first and watch what happens. If everything is good, then roll out. If everything is not good, or maybe some of your feature is broke, then in that case, you can pull back instantly to your running state, right? And in chaos engineering, teams intentionally break things in production in a controlled manner. So, to prove they can recover, they do this. And prime example of it is Netflix. So Netflix literally had a tool that randomly kills their own server. So you understood shift left and shift right. Now the third core DevOps philosophy is automation first, right? No matter what, the first thing that comes into your mind should be automation. But at what price, right? So people hear automation and think automate everything. Then they spend 2 days working on an automation task which will take 3 minutes only to do it manually, right? So is it a correct approach? If your work is taking 3 minutes only to do it manually, then should you write automation script or maybe some automation process for your task? No, right? So automation first, what it means actually is your first instinct when you do something more than once is, can this be automated or not? If a developer is manually clicking through a deployment, then every time there's a risk. They might miss a step, okay? They might do it different than the last time, or humans are inconsistent, right? Not because we are bad, but that's just how humans work. But instead, introduce a pipeline, an automated pipeline. Then what will happen? A pipeline doesn't forget. It runs the same exact things, the same exact way every single time. So when everything is automated, every team member gets the same result every time. Correct? Now comes the fourth philosophy of DevOps, which is continuous improvement. So in DevOps, there is a term called retrospectives, okay, which means you should have regular team conversations and you should understand what went well, right? What didn't, and what do we change? Not to blame people, but to improve your system or to improve your team's process, right? It also shows up in how teams handle incidents. The mature DevOps engineer response to a production outage would be, whose fault was this and what is in our system that allowed that particular fault to happen and how can we prevent it, right? So the DevOps engineer will understand the issue, okay, and they will document it, whatever the fix is, and they will actually fix it as well. Correct? So this continuous improvement will basically make your product much more reliable, right? And also they will enhance your product as well, your team's process or your team's culture as well. Now comes the fifth point, which is project versus product thinking. And why it is the core philosophy of DevOps? Because sometimes what happens, teams do not understand this process and they make a huge mistake while conducting their processes, due to which they face a heavy uh, backlash or maybe a heavy cost to it. Because project thinking is basically when there's a goal or a deadline to meet, or maybe there's a particular budget which is fixed for your project, and you hire some of the developers and the developer will work onto that project for maybe 8 months, right? And then they disband their team when the work is finished, and then they move ahead with the next project. So in this process, what they do, dev work onto a particular project and they pass it to the ops team once their contract is finished or once their billings cycle is finished, right? So in traditional IT companies, this is the actual process which are being followed. And currently the team, I mean the newer age IT companies are basically not implementing this practice anymore. So they are moving ahead with the product thinking. And the product thinking is basically when the team who owns the product runs it continuously, they build it, they run it, and whatever the issues they found, they fix it themselves. They do not hand over anything to ops team, and they improve it again and again by just fixing it, whatever the approach they take, right? And the single team, which consists your dev, your test QA team, your DevOps engineers, your SRE team, etc. This single team is responsible to handle the product from end to end. Not a single thing would be passed on to a next team to hand over, right? So, how do we know if a team is actually doing DevOps or not? Let's understand this through a very infamous framework, which is CALMS framework. Okay, CALMS. Now, what does this mean? C stands for culture, where culture is first because everything else depends on it. A bad culture may look like dev team throws code to ops and ops is getting blamed every time when it breaks. Nobody talks it until there's a crisis. And the first question in that crisis is whose fault is it? Now, at the other hand, the same opposite is the good culture, where one team is responsible for everything, and when something breaks, the first question is how do we fix it rather than whose fault is it? So, people will feel safe enough to say, I made a mistake without fearing for their job. And the next point is automation. So, every step a human touches by hand is a step that can go wrong, right? Or maybe it can get slow, or maybe some steps can be skipped, right? Automation in CALMS means push your code, tests run, and build happens, then only the deployment goes out. Nobody is clicking the button or nobody is forgetting the step, right? Now comes the next point, which is lean. Now, what does this mean? Two things matter here. Ship your code or deliver your code in small pieces, right? So that you can uh, find out whatever the issues is, and you should not like it does not have look like that you have developed a code for 18 months or 2 years, and then after every development work is done you find out that there are n number of vulnerabilities or n number of bugs over there and you do not fix it. So small pieces will help you to understand that however you are making the mistakes are getting rectified or not, and then you get the proper feedback and then you implement it inside your code, right? And also small releases, right? So two things lean is covering, which is ship small code, right? Right, or deliver your code in small chunks, and also deliver the releases or do the deployment in uh, small chunks, right? Which is why, because it is easier to test, easier to fix, and easier to understand when something breaks, right? Now M stands for measurement. So you cannot improve what you are not measuring. Four numbers are there that matters most in measurement. And how often are you deploying? How long does it take code to reach production? How fast do you recover when something breaks? And how many releases cause a problem? So those are the DORA metrics. Now what it is? In our next lecture, we will learn what is DORA metrics, and stay tuned for that. Okay. The last point is sharing, where knowledge that lives in one person's head is a ticking time bomb, right? For example, a senior DevOps engineer or a senior developer who is the only one who knows how the deployment works, what happens when they are sick for maybe 8 or 10 days, or maybe they went out for a vacation for 15 days, right? Or maybe they left the organization. Then in that case, you should prepare a proper KT videos, right? KT videos means knowledge transfer videos, where the person who knows everything about the deployment or the development will create the lecture videos or the knowledge transfer videos for the team members, or if anyone a new joinee is coming to your organization or is getting onboarded, then they can watch the video and understand the entire process. Along with this, you should also prepare documentations of your processes as well as run books, which will include each and every step how your application works, what, and also you can add some artifacts over there to support your documentation, or maybe some of the screenshots. So this will help a new joiner or maybe an existing team member to understand the entire workflow or the process of a particular application. And in case if that senior developer leaves, or maybe they went out for vacation, then other team members can work out on the application, right? Not because it's a good practice, because it's a survival instinct. Correct? So whatever the core philosophy we understood over here is basically how DevOps is followed in the companies, right? So shift left and shift right, they both go hand in hand. It's not a different practice where you first in your application, right? In your application, you first implement the shift left, then you implement the shift right. No, it is a combination of both, where the left side is you add the code, the best security practices at the very beginning, and the shift right means you should add the monitoring, observability, and other important approaches to basically deploy your application and make your process smooth. Now, the very famous term in DevOps is automation, and first comes first, the automation should be always prioritized. But at what cost? That should be also understood. Continuous improvement is what helps the team to improve their processes and to enhance their product, right? And the project versus product thinking, this is very obvious. You understood this. And how we measure it? We measure it through CALMS framework in a particular DevOps team, right? So if you like this content, we'll meet in the next video. Till then, subscribe to my channel.